Hi, this is Charles from Final Gravity, and this is my playlist for the week of January 12th to 18th, 2026. First, I listened to Stephen Ross' Midnight Drive from 1991. Another dizzyingly technical shrapnel record shredder from the twilight of the guitar age, when monsters still roamed the earth before hip-hop and grunge took over popular music. New Jerseyan Ross is aided and abetted by bassist Anthony Senatore, I hope I said that right, and aggressive brass drummer Joe Novello, who backs up his bombast with unquestionably excellent execution. Swede Jens Johansson contributes keyboards, which are mostly subtle and play a supporting role. There are the usual speedy jams propelled by double bass drums, metal-tinged blues-inspired shuffles, vague Steve Morse-isms. It's amazing how influential that guy was, and still is. And tricky ensemble arrangements that prove these guys had ample rehearsal time before going into the studio to record these tracks. This is an artifact of its time, and can be enjoyed as such. I still enjoy listening to music like this. Next up is Wydek, Entrance into Eternity, brand new for 2026. 7 years have passed since this one-man band from Poland released his excellent album, The Garden of Existence. While that release featured equal parts chiming infinite delay guitar atmospherics and mild metal rhythms layered over the top of it, this album finds the man getting down to djenty business. At times, as in the song Falling Into the Void, which features a killer solo from guest Paul Wardingham, utilizing Meshuggah's complex time-bending syncopation and leaning into that quacking guitar tone of proper djent. Sithu I turns in a terrifyingly accomplished solo in Chrono Drifters, a track that shifts rhythmic feel from 4/4 to 3/4 under your feet, often enough to create an untethered vibe that reveals the meaning of the song title. Speaking of Meshuggah, Per Nielsen guests on the final track, Beyond the Edge of Time, another song that plays the "Where's the One" game behind your back as you marvel at the tight, precise riffing. Italian guitarist Marco Spogli, in addition to his solo releases, he has played with PFM, Icefish, and the Elba Triangle, and the Wormhole Experience. He turns up in the track The Time That Stands Still, contributing a tasty lead over the melodic, clean lines and chugging metal rhythms. While this album already feels like it belongs in 2010, alongside Chimp Spanner and Plenty's early work, it's still an accomplished instrumental package that not just guitarists can enjoy. Very much recommended. Next up, Flatbacker, Isa from 1986. Little context here. The Japanese metal explosion of the early 80s produced some notable bands. Loudness, Earthshaker, Anthem, and Vow Wow are familiar to Occidental metalheads who frequented the import bins in their local indie record shops. Flatbacker wasn't as well known, releasing 2 albums under that name in Japan before Gene Simmons of Kiss got them signed to Geffen Records internationally. They changed their name at this point to EZO and released 2 more albums before splitting up. A little bit of trivia: vocalist Masaki Yamada and drummer Hiro Homa both joined Loudness in the 90s. Homa went on to play with Anthem as well. Small world of Japanese metal. Anyway, what about the music? The album opens with Gorilla Gang, and that's gorilla like the warfare, not the primate. It's a ferocious track that approaches the realms of early Megadeth's thrash. Although the choruses are more melodic, Cut Me Dead has a heavy, cutting, and weird non-diatonic opening riff, and the vocal melody is adventurous. There are some slightly complex riffs lurking throughout the subsequent songs, and while the predominant idiom is metal, there are some moments that come close to punk, the song Human, and thrash, especially Deep Insert, which reminds me of Loudness's Speed in one specific part. Nervous Disturbance switches between 4/4 and 6/4. Guitar leads are suitably technical, and the guitar tone sounds a lot like Akira Takasaki's from the first 3 Loudness albums. The mix does no favors for this album, as while everything seems to be well recorded, including the unexpected fretless bass in the song Closing, the mix is over-reverbed, and this leads to a muddiness and a thick, strong, low mids that just buries most of the performances in a wall of boom and sludge. It's an interesting artifact, and you can hear the kind of riffing and the progressions that would be blunted, refined, smoothed out for their American releases as Easy-O only a year later. You would have to be a pretty hardcore fan to seek this out. Also this week I listened to Dio's 2004 album Master of the Moon. This is the 10th and final Dio studio album. It kicks off with Blackmore-esque riffing, courtesy of longtime on-again, off-again collaborator Craig Goldie. The song has some tricky syncopation before Jeff Pilson on bass and Simon Wright on drums settle into a solid groove. It is a strong start to the record, but things are not all hunky-dory. For one thing, the mix is bottom-heavy. Pilson's bass tone does not cut through, and it does not have much presence. And except for the snare drum, the drum kit is mixed a bit lower than expected. Scott Warren contributes keyboards to this record. Besides playing with Dio, and subsequently Heaven and Hell, he contributed keyboards for various other projects, including Warrant, Hellion, and Berlin. The lyrics were never really about wildebeest and angels, but Ronnie James Dio has moved almost completely to contemporary subjects and themes. Missing, though, are the positive vibes from earlier in his career, replaced by some clear-eyed world weariness and some hard-bitten experience. The tracks tick by, musically darker and lacking the hooks that marked the earlier Dio catalog. Tracks like The Eyes just sort of drag along. They're kind of cool from one moment to the next, but they don't seem to add up to much of anything by the end of the album. The most Dio-like song in the album is Death by Love, which honestly is still not great. But it does reference a bunch of lyrics and concepts from prior Dio songs, and Ronnie does turn in the best vocal performance on the album. This one is for completists only. You do not need this in your collection unless you love Ronnie James Dio as much as I do. I also checked out a Grand Funk Railroad Greatest Hits album. Aside from I'm Your Captain, Closer to Home, and We're an American Band, I didn't really recognize any of their original tunes, and I was not particularly impressed with any of them. I was surprised to hear their cover of The Locomotion, which brought back memories of the skating rink from middle school. Anyway, that was everything I listened to this week. We would love to hear what you listened to, and if you would let us know in the comments, that would be awesome. If you have not followed us yet, please do, and we will see you next week.